Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Eritrea is in for congratulations from its neighbour Ethiopia after the UN removes sanctions on Asmara 9 years after they were brought in for its alleged support of Somali militants. The resolution comes after a number of diplomatic thaws in the Horn of Africa this year. Also, Cameroon's military cracks down on English-speaking militants in the northwest, claiming that over 24 have been killed in recent clashes. Hundreds of people have died over the last year in the armed Anglophone insurgency. We take a closer look. Also, 12 months on since Zimbabwe's former longtime leader Robert Mugabe was forced out by the military, many citizens are disappointed with new leader Emerson Mnangagwa. He's also part of Mugabe's ZANU-PF party, and there are fears that if it's still in charge, not enough is likely to change. But first, the UN Security Council's voted unanimously to lift sanctions against Eritrea. The resolution follows a huge diplomatic shift in relations in the Horn of Africa that came in the wake of Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's appointment back in April. A rapprochement between Addis Ababa and Asmara led to a thaw in relations between Eritrea and Djibouti. The Security Council had imposed an arms embargo and other tough sanctions on Eritrea back in 2009 for allegedly supporting Somali insurgents. Jessica Lamuzurier tells us more about the end of those bans.
These sanctions had been in place for almost a decade, and the UN Security Council members voted unanimously for them to be lifted. The mood inside the Security Council chamber was optimistic, hopeful. There was talk of a new dawn for the Horn of Africa. Now, these sanctions, which included an asset freeze and travel ban on Eritrea, were put into place by the Security Council back in 2009. This due to claims that Eritrea was helping the armed group Al-Shabaab in Somalia. Eritrea denied those claims. Now, the United Kingdom drafted this resolution, and the British ambassador to the United Nations, Karen Pierce, explained why this resolution is so important.
Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia have all made great efforts to move political processes forward and to reach agreement. So it's important for specific regional reasons. It's also important for wider reasons. It shows that sanctions can be lifted. Sanctions are a means to an end. They are a means to advance progress, political progress. They're a means to stop conflict. I think this region of Africa has done the international community a big favour today by showing that it can be done.
Now, it has to be pointed out that there have been some driving forces behind this resolution, according to diplomats here. They say that US National Security Advisor John Bolton had a personal hand in this. That is the thought here. That's what diplomats are telling me. Why? Well, because Eritrea is seen, in particular by the Saudis, as crucial in the fight against Islamic terrorism. And Saudi military operations have even been launched from Eritrea. There are even some reports that Eritrean troops have been fighting in Yemen. So support from the Saudis and a push from the US government for this resolution. It must be noted as well that in neighbouring Djibouti, the US, France and China have military bases.
Jessica Lamuzurier there for us. Now, Cameroon security forces say that dozens of separatists have been killed this week in clashes in Anglophone parts of the country. At least 30 English-speaking secessionists known as Amber Boys reportedly died in fighting on Tuesday in a village in the northwest. They had allegedly set a base up in a school not far from a town called Mbot. The military claims that it managed to free captives held by Anglophone insurgents. Hundreds of people have been killed in fighting between soldiers and secessionists over the last year. Our team takes a look back.
Cameroon is a country divided, a legacy of French and British colonial rule. To the country's west are its two Anglophone regions next to the Nigerian border. English speakers make up about 20% of Cameroon's total population. But Anglophones in the country have long complained of discrimination. At the end of 2016, thousands of English-speaking teachers and lawyers went on strike in protest at being forced to use French in their schools and courts. The authorities responded with mass arrests and by shutting down the internet. Since then, the conflict has deepened into a full-blown secessionist movement. Anglophone separatist leaders have called for their regions to break away from the rest of Cameroon, creating a new country called Ambazonia. In October 2017, the government sent in the army to break up protests. Over 40 demonstrators were killed and at least 100 injured in the space of a few days. The Cameroonian army has been accused of killing unarmed protesters and torching villages, which it denies. Separatists have also taken up arms, kidnapping soldiers and attacking government forces and buildings. In November 2018, 79 schoolchildren and 3 teachers were taken hostage and later released. Though no one has claimed responsibility for the attack, the volatility in the region has forced scores of schools to shut down. Thousands of Cameroonians have fled their homes, with 20,000 escaping to Nigeria. In Anglophone areas, tensions are still running high. Soldiers patrol the streets, and human rights groups fear the conflict escalating even further.
Recent municipal elections in Tunisia saw 349 new officials elected. Many are now struggling to wield newly expanded powers and responsibilities attached to the role. They certainly have their work cut out for them. Many don't come from a political background and are taking on their first experiment in local government. Our team reports.
In La Marsa, a suburb of the capital, the new mayor is a pediatrician elected from an independence list. He wants to build trust between citizens and politicians. This means that the law must apply to everyone.
We can't have double standards. We started trying to apply the decisions of the previous municipalities. We are an elected municipality, while they were appointed by central government. Now we find ourselves before a red line.
That red line is Town Hall's decision to close a cafe that didn't comply with building regulations, a controversial decision that's been contested by the governor of Tunis.
Today we are facing an open conflict between central government and the local authority. The conflict is political.
A political conflict that will be taken before the administrative court. The problem reflects some of the growing pains of decentralization, a process set into motion by the country's new constitution. It gives more administrative and financial power to municipal authorities.
Les problèmes majeurs que les municipalités.
The main problem that municipalities are facing today is the lack of human and financial resources, and also respecting the legal framework by amending certain laws.
Nevertheless, officials are making do. Marwa, the 26-year-old mayor of Menzel Abderrahmane in the north of Tunis, has started the renovation of a local soccer field for youth. She wants residents to feel supported.
We realize that many citizens aren't able to pay their municipal taxes. We are trying to make this easier by allowing them to pay in installments. The most important thing is that people start getting involved and fulfilling their duties as citizens.
Tunisia's new mayors face a tough balancing act in making local democracy a success in a country that is still in transition.
Now, it's been a year since the Zimbabwean army launched a coup that would eventually lead to the fall of Robert Mugabe, almost 4 decades after he first came to power. Despite hopes at the time that his exit would quickly bring in big changes, 12 months on and many people have scaled back on their expectations. Nicholas Chamau tells us more.
A year ago, the Zimbabwean army surrounded the capital, Harare. The military put Robert Mugabe under house arrest. A week later, he resigned. His 37-year rule was over. A year on, many Zimbabweans say they are disappointed with the new government. It's led by Emerson Mnangagwa, who was Mugabe's vice president. He won a disputed election in July.
I don't think everything has changed much. Yes, we have been reading in the newspapers, we have been reading, we have been hearing from the televisions, but nothing has changed so much. But things are going worse.
President Mugabe was much better than what is happening now. Street vendors are being chased away from the streets daily by police. But we send our children to school and take care of our old parents with the money we make here.
Last month, the annual inflation rate shot up to 20%, the highest level in 10 years. But the government said the situation would improve soon.
It has been a very, very, very active period for us, and we look forward to do serious engagement with the international community in terms of our international debt. the multilateral institutions like the World Bank and the IMF.
Mnangagwa has been especially criticised for the killing of 6 people during protests after his election. On Wednesday, the army told an inquiry they were not responsible for this, despite photos and videos showing the soldiers firing on the demonstrators.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks very much for joining us, and do so again if you can. Take care.